It was a cool day on October 15th, 2003, when a brave Chinese astronaut took his first steps into space. Aside from the fear of venturing into the unknown, can you imagine doing it all alone? Well, that's exactly what this astronaut did. Soaring into a solo mission toward the depth and vastness of the universe, he felt both excitement and fear at the same time. But not until he heard an odd sound. A tremendous hammering noise comes from his spaceship, which he describes as a terrible knock. The question is, what could that have been? Or rather, who could be knocking at this door in space? China's first man in space. Before anything else, let's get to know the person behind the story. We have seen multiple Americans having an adventure through space, but this one is one of a kind. For the first time in history, Yang Liwei was the first ever Chinese astronaut to fly outside our planet Earth. To begin with, he was a fighter pilot of the known Air Force of the People's Liberation Army, or PLA. From there, he garnered the award of being the first-class pilot. This award allowed him to enter this whole new, more challenging path of being an astronaut. If the sky was just his playground before, now he experiences looking down at the skies from above the Earth. Back in 1996, when Yang Liwei was selected as one of the astronaut candidates, it was still a risky idea to enter into a new, more challenging field, but he dared to get out of his comfort zone. Among all the other 13 representatives, he was the chosen one. He overcame his fear and trained for 5 years. Now he holds on to this core memory of both a wonderful and frightening adventure. Imagine being so far away from home, floating in a tiny capsule in space, and suddenly you hear something outside the spaceship. The sounds were loud and sounded as if something or someone was knocking from the outside. If this happened to someone inside their house, it would already be a nerve-wracking experience. What more into the void of space? The terrifying knock. In space, there are countless stories of mysteries, as intriguing as it may sound, but this one is sort of a unique genre. If all other stories just pique your curiosity, this one is a little bit spooky. It was really a mixed emotion for Yang Liwei to go beyond the Earth all alone. Apart from this, who wouldn't feel pressured if they rode in an untested spacecraft? It's like a gamble with his life at risk. Well, the good news is, he successfully made it through space in just 10 minutes. Just shortly after he reached his destination, Yang Liwei needed to adapt to its new location. Aside from floating into space, that deafening silence was really disturbed all of a sudden. We have heard the good news of a successful venture. Now the bad news is, Yang Liwei nervously searches for someone. Not because he was already homesick, but for the reason that he has heard someone knocking on his spaceship. There's no use panicking all alone. Although Yang Liwei was so terrified, he tried his very best to calm and solve the situation. He must get together his senses and determine where the strange sound is coming from. So the first thing he did was to check if there was malware in the spaceship system. He navigates the computer to see if there are any emergencies or any kind of malfunctions. But after checking all sorts of instruments, he doesn't see any problem. All systems were working perfectly. However, the knocking sound still kicks his spaceship. So what he did instead was to look through his window courageously. Would you be more terrified if you look out of the window and see someone staring back at you? Or would you prefer if you heard a sound of knocking but no one is there while you look around? Yang Liwei was more terrified to know that he's just all alone, yet something bizarre is happening. The strange thing is he didn't see anything. It's neither on the inside nor the outside. And so his mission lasts for a fearful 21 hours. He successfully landed back on Earth, and there he was, waving to the public like nothing ever happened. For several days, he keeps this horrifying experience to himself. Yang Liwei was insecure about the idea that people would think of him as mentally ill. So what happened next is that he secretly investigated the strange phenomenon alone. However, Yang Liwei couldn't continue to live that way. He was also concerned with his colleagues that will also be flying through space. He warned Shenzhou 6 and Shenzhou 7 astronauts in advance about this strange noise. Apart from this, he also decided to broadcast the information in a television interview. According to his statement, "A non-casual situation I've met in space is a knock that appeared from time to time. It neither came from outside nor inside the spaceship, but it sounded like someone was knocking the body of the spaceship just as knocking an iron bucket with a wooden hammer." After the space missions of Shenzhou 6 and 7, they also reported the same strange phenomenon while in space. Similar to what young Li Wei experienced, they also heard a knocking sound. As a result, this sparked rumors. Some say it was an extraterrestrial being who's knocking. As much as young Li Wei wants to solve this mysterious phenomena, it's really hard for him to find an answer. Even the technicians that tried to replicate the sound are having a hard time. Young Li Wei was left with no explanation. The question is, was it just some kind of hallucination? Let's get to know NASA's speculations. Astronauts' speculations. According to the various speculations of his fellow astronauts, it's possible that young Li Wei is just going through what they call space dementia. Space dementia is something that can be diagnosed in the case of most astronauts. They often call this also space madness. Well, you can just imagine being isolated all alone and floating into the unknown. It might be exciting to go to outer space, but an astronaut must consider all the underlying strange possibilities, including how well your mental health is able to adapt life outside Earth. However, one colleague of young Li Wei defends him. He believes young Li Wei from what he tells because he views him as a stable person. Apart from this, young Li Wei also conducted a psychological test before going on a mission. So there's no way that this was just a hallucination, especially considering that he was not just the only one who experienced this phenomenon. From his other colleague's point of view, it might have something to do with the temperature. His colleague explained that this type of phenomenon occurs due to the expansion of contraction of his spaceship. This happened because as the spaceship travels within the orbit, the temperature changes. As a result, this will cause the spaceship's exterior to make noise as the expansion of contraction happened. However, this claim wasn't testified well. Another speculation is that it could be some sort of debris hitting his spacecraft, but this suggestion was left with no further supporting data. Given the fact that young Li Wei checks possible malware in his spacecraft during and after his mission. On the other hand, one speculation coming from young Li Wei himself is that it was due to the thermal effect. This supports one of his colleagues' suggestions about temperature changes. At least that's his best guess. Sound space mystery solved. From all multiple unexplained files of NASA, there's nothing like good satisfaction from solving such a long question. For almost decades of studying what might have been the cause of this sound, now we hold a key answer to this greatest mystery. Actually, our answer also falls in the category of the various speculations we've mentioned. Can you guess what it is? It's close to temperature changes. Well, if your guess is correct, perhaps your zone of genius is indeed in the field of space. You know, in space, there are always complex calculations. Let me explain the physics. According to young Li Wei, he learned that the knocking sound was just a product of air pressure. Well, the fact that there is no air in space is what causes this phenomenon. As the spaceship shifts to a new environment, it decreases the air pressure. As a result, air leaking out of a spaceship is what causes the strange noise. Space is really a mysterious place. There are different stories to tell, from what the astronauts saw, feel, and now hear. If you were in their shoes, would you show no fear?
有千千万万个这个航天人一直在努力做这件事情，我感觉这个荣誉应该是大家。
Encountering strange experiences in space is unavoidable. Even if a space mission is your vision, will you give up on reaching this ambition? Or perhaps you'll still continue without any hesitation? We'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching.